Why, hello everyone. Welcome back to Behind the Cutscenes, a games industry podcast. I am none other than your host, Jake Yoder, and wow guys, I've missed you. It's been like 2 weeks since we've had an episode here. I know, I get 2 episodes in. I'm really excited about making sure we have one every single week. I completely edit the 3rd episode, and then boom, my computer dies. Game over. And I'm talking like the only way to save this guy is to do a complete factory reboot. So that's what I have to do. All my files were gone. The interview was gone. I stupidly did not have it saved to the cloud, which is something that I obviously highly regret because I lost that whole conversation with staff writer of the Daily Beacon, Seth Chapman. It was a great conversation, but I'm sure we'll be able to have him on again and recreate it. But I was kind of left out in the cold. I didn't have anything to do. This literally happened Tuesday night. The podcast normally goes up on Wednesdays. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a guest. I couldn't really think of anything interesting enough to do a solo podcast. So I was just kind of out a week. And yeah, that sucked. So that's why we missed last week. Now, I did actually get a podcast recorded this week, which I'll get into introing here in a second, but I was so busy on Tuesday that I didn't have time to edit it to have it up on Wednesday. But hey, what's a day between friends? So here we are on Thursday with the latest episode of Behind the Cutscenes. Now, this week we don't necessarily have an industry professional, so to say, on, but we do have someone on who knows a lot about a certain part of the industry, which I think is pretty big. This week we've got my friend on, Austin Hookassian. Now, Austin is one of my very best friends here at Knoxville. We've known each other for about a year now, and he's my homie. We're good friends. But one thing that we don't have in common is Austin is really into fighting games and the fighting game community, or FGC. I am not. I'm not a competitive guy. I'm not all that good at video games. If something is hard, I just kind of move along and I go and try and find something that is naturally easy to me or that I'm naturally good at, which I am not at fighting games, so I've never really been into that community. But Austin is really into it, and he's really into it here in Knoxville, and he's really into it in Tennessee, and just as a whole, he plays a lot of Street Fighter, a lot of Dragon Ball FighterZ, so I wanted to have him on and sit down and talk to us about what makes fighting games good. Now, even though, like you've probably come to accept here on Behind the Cutscenes, the audio isn't perfect, I think this is a really good conversation. You know what, honestly, Austin sounds pretty good. Even though I thought I had the right setting on, I didn't though, so I am pretty quiet on this episode, which I apologize about, but luckily Austin does do most of the talking. He sounds good, so just bear with me when I'm a little bit quiet. But I really think this is a fantastic episode. We have great conversations, very enlightening, especially if you've never been to fighting games or the fighting game community. And even if you are, I think you'll be very validated by some of the stuff that Austin has to say here. So before we hop right into the show, obviously I'm going to plug all of our socials here at the end of the show. But hey, please follow us at Behind Cutscenes on Twitter. Follow me at Jakey Wakey. That's Jakey Wakey with 2 Y's at the end. And you can follow me on Facebook at Jake Yoder Entertainment. Also, little self-plug, I started writing for But Why Though, a geek community over the past week or so. My first article went up either yesterday or today or tomorrow. It's a review of a game called Barrel of the Apocalypse. Spoiler alert, I didn't like it. But hey, I'm really excited to be a contributing writer on there, at first just with video games, but hopefully soon with manga as well. So hey, look forward to reading my stuff there. All right, so that's enough jibber jabber before the episode. Thanks for bearing with us for missing a week. Without further ado, let's get into Behind the Cutscenes, Episode 3 with Austin Hookassian, a fighting game enthusiast. Thank you for joining me here today.
No problem.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I know. That sounded stupid. Yeah, I know. I'm excited too. We've been friends for a while now, and of course, I know that you're really big into fighting games and the fighting game community.
That is all I do. Yes.
And I, as you know, as totally not me. Like I am non-competitive at all. I like single-player games. I'm bad at video games somehow.
That is the one thing I am, and that is just pure competitiveness. Like, I can't stand losing at anything.
Oh, yeah?
But I only like losing if it means I can eventually get better.
Like a Saiyan from Dragon Ball.
Yes. Because that's, me and my friends are actually doing, like, a talking, because I'm not good at, like, how I get good at things is that I just, like, lose 10 million times over and over again. A lot of people would, like, see that and be like, oh, man, I don't want to play anymore because I keep losing. I'm like, all right, I'm going to lose, and then as soon as I start winning, that's how I know I get good.
Yeah.
So, like, every time, like, I'll play with my friend who taught me how to play a certain fighting game, and he gets to the point, it's like, God damn it, every time, I keep beating him, but every time it gets closer and closer, and I don't like that. I'm like, yes, I'm getting better. It's working.
You can feel the improvement. It's tangible.
See, that's why it's so much fun. Because, like, when you're playing a fighting game, you can actually see your improvement, like, just, like, slightly. Because it's either you're not losing as fast, you're noticing things, and once you, like solve a solution to, like, a problem that you're facing, like, it's like a light bulb going off, and you're like, oh, I can tangibly see what I'm doing better and how I'm getting better.
So, that kind of sounds like, I do not like math at all, but I think math can be kind of appealing in that way, where it's like, you're doing a problem and you get that answer and you check the answer and you see that it's right, and you get that like I did it. It sounds kind of like that.
So,
or like a puzzle, maybe that'd be better.
So here's the thing: is that I love puzzles. That could also be why. Like, so before we were talking about math, I have a friend who's actually like really into math and like mathematical theories and stuff. So like and he's a huge fighting game player too. Is one of my good friends. And anyway, when he's playing something, he goes, oh, he likes going in the lab, is what we call like practice training room for fighting games. And you go and you can like make the computer do a certain move or something, and then you can just test and see like what else you could do to beat it. And he's like the king of that. Like I have a bit where I call him like Victor Frankenstein, because he's just in the he's like a mad scientist in the lab all like 24/7.
So why do you play fighting games? Why would you call yourself kind of like an expert on fighting games?
I would say expert compared to like the regular person, but like I don't know. I know a lot, but I don't know like everything about fighting games.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So I guess like
because I'm pretty new in the scene. Because fighting games, or I guess like the scene really started as soon as Street Fighter 2 came out. But that's like forever before me,
before our time.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess what got you into fighting games? What's your history with the FGC? I suppose.
Okay, so if we're going to the very beginning, I would say that I've always been a competitive person, but only when it came to video games. Because initially, I never understood, like, as a concept when I was, like, little and tiny, that you could get better at things. I always just assumed, like, oh, everyone's just naturally good at something. And the only thing I was somewhat good at, I guess you could say, was, like, video games. Since I've been playing them since I was, like, 2 years old. Because I got the GameCube when it came out. So came out 2001, I think.
Something like that.
Yeah, so I would have been around 2 years old, which is... Ever since I was born, I was playing something, and then I could just like kind of understand games a little bit easier. And then Super Smash Bros. Melee was the first, I guess, fighting game. Although in the FGC we don't really associate with Smash Bros. That much, but it depends on the person, depends on the thing. We welcome them sort of, but no harsh feelings towards Smash. But anyway, Melee is what really got me into like being like, oh, I can play video games against people, and then I can beat them to the point of like, hey, I'm kind of good at something. So, like, whenever we'd have, like, all of our friends over, and we'd all, like, play, I would, like, me and my brother would be, like, the only ones who would, like, kind of win every single time. And then we'd be like, oh, okay, well, I can't beat my older brother and my older brother's friend. And then I got to the point where I did beat my older brother, and I'm like, maybe I can just keep getting better at this. And then, like, that kind of spiraled off. But that kind of get me into, like, more competitive things. But what started me in, like, fighting games specifically is... actually a lot of people too, is called Evo Moment 37. It's a fighting game clip where they're playing Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and I wish you could have the clip up.
Is this the one where they're like the block?
Yeah,
block,
exactly.
Block.
It's the one of them does a super move with like one. It's Daigo versus Justin Wong. Daigo has one. He's a Japanese player, arguably the greatest Japanese fighting game player in the world, or just fighting game player in the world. And then he has no health, so he gets hits by anything he loses. And then Justin Wong does like a super move, and he's able to parry, because in Third Strike, instead of taking damage, if you tap forward, you can block every hit. So he's able to do it. It's a 13 hits that he times perfectly without being able to see it. And like the amount of skill it took to just do that, like I've tried doing it myself. It is so impossible.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
If I'm remembering this clip correctly, he not only blocks it, but then like counters it with a super move himself.
Oh
and
yeah,
wins,
so
right?
he parries it. He parries the whole super, jumps down, does a jump in combo, and wins the round based off of that.
And this is one of those like I've never been huge into fighting games, but if I ever had the chance, like if the world ever goes back to normal and I ever have the chance to like go to Evo, oh I would kill for it. Because the energy in that room when he does that, like you can just tell on the clip, everybody's like,
Yeah.
it's like the Super Bowl, you know? It's like, whoa!
It was insane. It's like even in like the clip for you, it was like it said you had to be there because like you can't get that like amount of like pressure and like excitement in the room just from watching. But like even just watching it's still crazy.
Yeah.
That's why I went to or that's why like I really want to go to Evo. That was like always one of the things I've always wanted to do. But I'm
isn't Evo like dead now or something?
Yeah, there's so there was a scandal that happened with Mr. Wizard, one of the guys who like helped found Evo, and then once coronavirus hit, everything went offline. Then that thing came out, and they canceled the online. So I kind of don't know where Evo's at. I would think that the brand would still stay solid because they also have like Evo Japan and other stuff. So I think the brand and tournaments will be good, but I don't know. We'll see.
I know it was canceled this year, obviously because of COVID. But yeah, I remember. I mean, this year was crazy. I remember the Smash Bros community. I think during the pandemic there was a big like. A bunch of people got outed for like sexual harassment.
Yeah,
pedophilia.
Yeah, see, I don't know. It's like one part where I don't like Smash anymore.
Yeah.
But
I guess sorry, that was a tangent. Let's get back to.
All right, but
so
anyway,
that moment kind of. So got you
that moment, so watching that video, I was like, oh man, that was sick. I wonder what other fighting games are out that I could play. So I watched a couple of videos on YouTube. One series I highly recommend if you're into fighting games at all. Even if you're not into fighting games, you just like good videos, I would highly recommend Core Gaming. It's a YouTube channel where it's like every single fighting game player is like that is like cream of the crop videos that explain concepts that would be like almost impossible to explain to like people who are new at fighting games. And he does them perfectly. So I'm shilling out for him right now, but please go look him up. It's Core Gaming. So good.
Yeah.
But anyway, I watched those videos and I'm like, oh man. There's a couple games I want to try, and then the one that caught my eye was Street Fighter V, because I watched a ton of Street Fighter 4 videos, because, I don't know, those were the only ones that I could get. It's like Snake Eyes and all these players playing, and then Street Fighter V came out, and I'm like, oh man, this is sick, and I watched Evo for the Evo tournament for Street Fighter V. That was the most hype thing I've ever seen in my life.
So what are the main games that you play? Obviously, you mentioned Street Fighter V.
So I play 3 games. There's like a bunch of games that I like, but there's 3 main ones. Where it's Street Fighter V is the first fighting game I've like actually learned. Then it was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, and then Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Right. So what drew you to those games specifically?
So Street Fighter I thought was an interesting concept, and there's one character in Street Fighter who I think is the coolest character ever. His name's Akuma. He's the person I play in Street Fighter V, and he's just so sick. He's like an evil karate practitioner who uses like evil power to like kill his enemies. It's so sick.
Heck yeah.
His one of his super moves is called the Raging Demon, and like when he hits you with it, he says "Die 1,000 deaths." I'm like, that is so crazy. I need to play as this character. And then funny enough, when I learned Third Strike, because I grew up playing, or I guess grew up, I played Street Fighter V at Game Galaxy Arcade in Smyrna, Tennessee. And there they have a Third Strike arcade cabinet, like a double set 'em up so you can play against people. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. So like I would go there for tournaments, and whenever I'd lose, I'd be like, oh, I'll go play Third Strike, since it's just another game that I could play. And then I really fell in love to a lot of characters in Third Strike and parrying, because I didn't process that of what game they were actually playing in Evo Moment 37. I'm like, oh, that's Third Strike, and I figured you can parry moves in that game. Oh, it's so much fun. And then I got into Dragon Ball because my friend is like, hey, I started hosting fighting games here at UTK, like esports club. And so the couple first ones hosted like Street Fighter V and Dragon Ball FighterZ. I knew nothing about Dragon Ball at all. Never even gotten into Dragon Ball, and just play, and like didn't even know anything about the game either. Then my friend's like, hey, we should play this game, because I met him at the tournament. It was a lot of fun. And then I was like, okay, I can learn it. And then the only reason why I thought the game was maybe interesting, because I saw the character Android 21. And I'm like, that's a sick design for a character.
Still your waifu.
Yes, to this day.
But yeah, I love hearing about how you got into FighterZ because that just shows how good of a game that is just on its own. Because like,
yeah.
I bought that like day one just because I'm such a big Dragon Ball fan,
Mhm.
not even being a fighting game fan.
I didn't know. At first, I was like, man, I know there's people that like just buy every single Dragon Ball game. I'm like, I didn't know those people were real until I met you.
Yeah, until you walked into my
And I walked
apartment.
in like, oh, that's a lot of Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I mean,
And then you bought Kakarot, which was like the next like big Dragon Ball game that came out like after Z, and I'm like, oh, okay, I know what type of person Jake
yo,
is.
Kakarot's good. I love that game.
Couldn't play a single player game.
It's
to save my
so
life.
much fun. First of all, I bought the Ultimate Edition, so I spent
Mhm.
like $100 on that game. And second of all, I platinumed it and have played all the DLC. It's a good game. It's a good game. That's
rock.
neither here nor there. So you've mentioned you've played in some tournaments, right?
Yeah, so I am, maybe not am, but I've played a lot of tournaments here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and then in Nashville, Tennessee.
Right.
For a
So
lot of
what
tournaments.
what tournaments have you played in, and how have you done in those? I suppose.
Okay, so Nashville, Tennessee. There's not a ton of us that play Street Fighter V, so it's like me, my brother, our friend Nagi, and then one of my really good friends. His name's Thomas. He goes by the tag Tito G, and he is like the person that like taught us or like taught me and my brother how to play Street Fighter V to the point of like meaties, blockies, like all the different concepts that you have to like learn just in fighting games. So he like really helped us through there. And then it's gotten to the point where it's just me and him normally in finals to the point. Nagi used to be a lot better than me because he kind of taught Thomas how to play. And then I used to compete against him. And then that was a while. Then we had to move from to go to school, obviously, college. And then we play at this tournament called Token Throwdown. Before the pandemic happened, and that was played in Street Fighter V, Third Strike, and then like a bunch of other games. Like Tekken is huge here in Knoxville.
Is that at the Token Game Tavern?
Yeah, Token Game Tavern. Yeah, so we go compete over there, and then for the longest time, I would win a lot of the Street Fighter V tournaments, and then I would also win Third Strike when that happened. Then a good friend of ours who we met through the FGC, his name's Clint, came over, just started beating everyone in Street Fighter V. I'm like, God damn it! Now I got to work 10 times harder just to be like better. But it's like I've always liked having someone better than me at something because that means I always have a goal to go for. Because like now that he's beating me, I'm like, oh shoot! Now I got to get like 10 times better just to even like come close.
Yeah, I love how Goku-esque everything you're saying is. Like in my head, you're talking, or just like shonen protagonist, like. Oh, I want to be the strongest there is, but I always like there to be someone stronger, so I can aspire to that. Like that's some Goku shit right there, dude.
Yeah, because I don't know, it's a lot of fun because I'm never bored with a fighting game. Because no matter, even if it's one I've been playing for a year, because I've been playing Street Fighter V since Season 2, which came out in like, I think it was like 2017, I think is when I started, because I think it was 2016 was Season 1. And then I've been playing ever since then. Like, I still play constantly every day.
Every day?
I try to get at least like an hour of practice in.
Whoa, every day.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, I say that as if I don't probably put at least an hour into video games every day.
Yeah.
But that's something, I mean, I mentioned this in the last podcast that went live with Casey Donnell, and he was talking about playing Destiny 2. And I was saying, I just don't understand games like that. Not understand, it's just like they're not for me.
Yeah.
Just because I'm like, oh, that's a lot of time to put into one game.
Yeah.
And even more so in my head for like fighting games, because I think it's fascinating that you say like, oh, I never get bored of it, you know, I never get tired of it. Because to me, it's like, it gets so boring pretty quickly.
Yeah,
you know?
that's where it's like, because I don't want to like play the game. I want to get better at the game. It's not about, to me, I think, funny enough, this is why I like puzzle games so much, is that you can always, or puzzle game, by I'm saying that, I mean Tetris, is that you can always get better at Tetris. And I don't know what it is, but it's like seeing a solution fast is very satisfying to me, especially when you get better at it and better. It's like that same thing when the light bulb goes off and it's like, oh, I could just do this and it makes everything easier.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this tells you a little bit about my personality, but like, I feel like I've always been at least a little bit lazy, where it's like, oh, if I don't have a natural inclination to this thing, like, it's not worth my time to like work on it to try and get better.
That is true.
Like, I'll just move on and do something else, which is I don't know. I guess why, like we've talked, I don't really play fighting games. I don't really play Souls-like games because I'm like, this is hard. It's too difficult.
To me, the making it hard is what makes it fun. Because if I'm not challenged the whole time I'm playing, then it gets boring. Like it's the same people. Like I couldn't stand just like having like RPGs to me are like so boring because I hate repetitive combat that isn't hard. Or it's not physically challenging. Right. Where it's like in a fighting game, you have to like do the moves and the combos. Well, they might not be that hard. I still have to like react to them. Whereas like an RPG, it's just like, okay, hit it with this thing where it's weaker. Like Pokemon got super boring to me. We're just like, what beats water? Oh, grass. All right, hit grass move. Yeah. All right, on to the next gym. And I don't know. They get super boring to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But there's something, there's people that are only into RPGs and have like
I mean they have their whole different reasoning, but it's different games for different people, right?
For sure, yeah.
It's just all right, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's what I mean that's the cool thing is it's like I'm not into fighting games at all, but like I love hearing you talk about fighting games because I think it's just so cool. And, like a lot of me wishes I could be into it, but also I mean I do I do too much. I'm too busy at all times. So that's another thing is I'm like, God, pouring so much time into like one game would feel so tiring. And then especially like I don't know, I understand why people like hold on to games in the FGC, why Melee is still being played or why
that's not included. FGC is purely that.
Why like Third Strike is still being played or something.
There you
like
go.
That.
Great comparison. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Like older games like that, it's like you hold on to them, but like I don't know. I feel like I would be like, damn, it would feel like a waste to be like, I put like 5,000 hours into like Street Fighter 5 and now Street Fighter 6 is out and everyone's moved on.
That is the one fear, but also it's very reassuring, right? Where it's like the next game could be even more fun and I could be even more invested in that one. That's how I look at it. Where it's like there's a couple releases coming out, like Guilty Gear Strive is coming out soon. I am very excited for that because I kind of liked the older Guilty Gear games, but they weren't like really up my alley. But I really think the direction they're going looks fun, but also could be bad depending on who you ask. But I don't know, I'm excited. I feel like, and it looks amazing too. Like even if you don't like any of the like gameplay that they're changing from like Exart or anything, the newest one is like so stylistic.
Is it also Arc System Works?
Yeah, Arc System Works has been like knocking on the park with like most anime games, like that and Dragon Ball FighterZ. I think we were talking about that.
Arc System Works is just the king of the fighting game community to me right now. Like every game that they make, not only looks beautiful, but also from what I hear and from what I played a little bit, just like plays really fluidly and amazing. So whenever I hear whenever I hear that Arc System Works is involved in a game at all, I know that there's going to be a level of quality there.
Yeah, Arc System Works is definitely really good, especially for an actual like Arc System Works fan, because I would have never really gotten into like anime games, especially where it's like anime fighters, because they play a lot differently than like Street Fighter. Because I wouldn't have really gotten into it unless Dragon Ball FighterZ came out. And then after that, now going back and like actually watching Dragon Ball after I've already played with all the characters, I'm like, oh, there's Krillin, he rocks, and like, oh, I love all the characters now.
Dude, okay, so another bit of a side tangent, but you always like sometimes I'll ask you like, do you play, how do you feel about Mortal Kombat? Or like, how do you feel about Injustice? And you're like, no, they've got a block button. Like, it's terrible.
Okay.
So explain that to me. Like, what's your issue? What's your damage?
Because here's the thing is that all fighting games have like similar concepts that you could either really like or don't like. That's the thing is that that's what's beautiful about the fighting game community is that there's a fighting game for literally everyone. If you don't think there's one out for you or don't think there's one for you, you literally just haven't found it yet.
Yeah.
To the point where there's so many. Like there's old like Kusoge games where it's like Fist of the North Star and they're so wild you can kill someone off of like one hit because it goes into an infinite combo. Jeez. But like every character can do that, so it's like kind of balanced in a weird way. So like going back to Mortal Kombat where it's like Mortal Kombat or I forget NetherRealm games. They're like very like to me, they're not as fun because, one, there's a block button. This just might be a me tangent, but I don't like having a block button in fighting games. I don't know what it is. But anyway, it's like different games for different people. Like Mortal Kombat, I think, looks cool. And I'm a huge fan of DC characters. That's why I was super excited for Injustice before I got into Street Fighter. And now that I'm into Street Fighter, it's like Mortal Kombat games are just like, to me, they play slower. And then there's a lot of like overhead moves that like lead into combos, and then like it's like guessing high or low or left or right.
Yeah.
And I'm not the biggest fan of that in terms of fighting games. And to me, it's like very chunky, and the animations always look weird to me. However, for people who love Mortal Kombat, that's all they want, right? Or it's like if they are like playing Street Fighter, they're like, this game's not really for me. Which I think is what's really fun about FGC games. Just like in general, because it's like everyone, there's a game for literally everyone. Like, Cora Gaming talks about this one fighting game where it's Sailor Moon S. It's an old NES or Super NES fighting game, and it's so wild to the point where like if you like one character has a fireball and if you block it, you take more damage than if you got hit.
What?
Yeah, it's so busted and gross, but like some people love playing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what's super fun about the FGC is that there's a game for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely variety. I mean, you see the kings, like Street Fighter. There's always going to be a Street Fighter.
Capcom.
That's in the tournament.
It's like Capcom, Mortal Kombat. Well, Capcom maybe not as much anymore, but it used to be just like that. Marvel vs. Capcom, Street Fighter, like those games have always just been like the highlights of all fighting game tournaments.
How do you feel about 3D arena fighters, like the Ultimate Ninja Storm series?
Like the Naruto games?
Yeah.
They're fun.
Sorry, I love when I asked about Mortal Kombat, you had this big answer. For this one, it's like, yeah, they're fun.
Well, it's like, they're like barely fighting games. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, kind of like, it's like the people who play those games aren't in the fighting game community, and they're not like, they don't talk about other games and stuff like that. Mostly they're like, oh, because I like Naruto, or like something like that.
Well, because I was just thinking, because we were talking about the variety of, the fighting games, and so I was thinking about like games that are like in Evo, and it maybe be like, I don't think that game's been in Evo, but I see like tournaments or stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I see there are Ultimate Ninja Storm.
So that's like there are tournaments and stuff for it, because I think I've seen a couple like just videos of it, but like they kind of get fundamentally broken because so here's the difference between like a fighting game and like a 3D arena game is that like 3D arena games, once you get to like a competitive level, they just get like broken, where it's like there's just like some fundamental flaw in them that just prevents them from being like really competitive.
Right.
So like I remember one of the Naruto games, you can just like lock someone forever, but like almost every character can do that to the point where like it's not fun because you're just mashing one button.
Right.
And it's like you can technically have like tournament stuff for it, but it's not as part of like the big bubble of FGC
I know
stuff.
There's definitely people that won't hear that and get at least a little bit offended. Because like, so my friend Clay, he did the intro for this podcast. Shout out to Clay. He is really good, or at least he was really good at Ultimate Ninja Storm. I think 3, probably any of them because they all play kind of similar. But I know 3 or 4 he was really into. I remember especially when we first started hanging out. We would boot it up and he would just, I mean, I couldn't touch him.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember him saying he's put over 1,000 hours into that game and stuff, you know? So I know that you can, like, be
it's
good
like,
at those games.
It's like you can, right? It's like I used to be like me and my brother before we got into like fighting games, right? Because we always just played like co-op games, and then like we're all huge fans of Naruto. And then that game came out, and we're like, oh, we'll play this just because it's like, I can play as like the third Hokage and like just like play with characters, right? So like that's what we did because we would just play that game against each other. And it's like then I looked at like tournament footage and I noticed that like you just do like one busted thing that like almost nobody can deal with. And I'm like, well, what just prevents me from doing that and just being like, all right, this game's kind of done now. And I'm like, okay.
I feel that. So I guess to get back into just like fighting games and the games you play, for people that aren't in the FGC, I'm sure most people know this probably because of Smash Bros. But when you play a game, you generally have a main. Which is, to my understanding, one character that you just kind of, you quote unquote main. That's the person that you play all the time. Yeah. So I guess, who do you main in these games and how did you choose them? Like what drew you to those characters? Okay.
I can tell you for all 3. It's pretty easy. So Akuma was the initial one that got me into Street Fighter because I just thought, this character is cool looking, and he just has like such a sick like character design where he's like he's got red hair, like huge buff, super like maybe not sleek, but like he just looks like a bad dude. And I'm like, oh, I love villains in like anything. I'm always a big fan of the villains. Like, people hate Tom Brady. I love Tom Brady.
I know.
He's
yeah,
like such super villain. I love him.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. you were like, I don't know. Tom Brady's great.
I don't know. People just hate winners, dude. I don't know. It's like, see, that's another thing. Okay, but anyway, so Akuma, I just thought he was super sick, and then I noticed that he has a lot of fun mechanics in general. Like, he breaks the concept of like basic fighting game characters, where it's like the basic fighting game character is like Ryu or a Shoto, which is like you do like an uppercut motion and you throw a fireball.
Right.
And then those are like the main two concepts that like fighting game characters kind of build off of. And then Akuma defies that because he can do he can throw his fireball in the air so it like comes down as the same time he's landing. And then there's like he can teleport across the screen. He's got the super move that can like if you're close enough to the person, it counts as like a grab. And then you just get hit with like 1,000 damage. Dang. And like he's a ton of fun, but he's also a glass cannon. He has the lowest health in the game, so if you get hit like 3 times, you're practically dead.
Dang.
Yeah, so he's an all or nothing character, but he's so much fun.
Yeah.
And then I guess in Dragon Ball, that one's really fun. If we wanted, because Dragon Ball characters, for sure. Is that first one was Android 21. I thought she was just a cool character, and I love pink just as a color.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, Android 21 on there for sure. She gets to like steal moves from people, which is really fun. So like she always has a little bit extra. Like when you grab Piccolo and like steal a move from him, you get to use his same like floating orb that comes towards you, or like reality stone is what we call it in the game.
Yeah.
Is that it's a lot of fun to like work around constantly being like, okay, I have someone else's move that I can use later. So that was always fun. And then the other 2 characters on that team are Cell, just because I love villains, and then Broly, because I saw the Broly movie was the first time I ever got introduced to Dragon Ball, and I'm like, this character rocks. I'm putting him on my team if he ever comes in the game. My friend's like, that'll never happen. And then he showed up, and I'm like, yes, I got my full squad. Let's go.
I remember when I used to play FighterZ, just a little bit. I think my team was Yamcha, Cell, and like Kid Buu.
What order did you put them in? Because that's an OD team. If you that's just a busted team.
Yeah.
If you put them in the correct order.
That's why I played that. I have no idea what order I put them in, but that's why I played them, because I remember. I mean, I've always liked Yamcha. Like, he's always been one of my favorite Dragon Ball characters, and so when I found out he was like good at that game, I was like, yes. And then I remember specifically playing online against people, and people would use Cell and Majin Buu, and I would be so mad, or Kid Buu, I mean. Yeah. I would be so mad and annoyed, so I started using them myself, because I was like, these characters are good. And from what I remember, FighterZ is one of those games, and my friends back home used to always get so mad, because I had some friends that were kind of into fighting games, and I could sometimes win against them in FighterZ by mashing buttons. Yeah. It's one of those games where like you definitely, there's 100% skill there, like 99.9% of the time, but I feel like you can get, isn't there just a combo you can get by just mashing?
Oh yeah, so like, see, this is where there's a big disconnect with old fighting games and new fighting games, right? Is that new fighting games have been trying to lower the bar of like ease of access, so more people can get into them. But for people who don't like that as much, I'm not the biggest fan of it myself, but auto combos are a way to like introduce like concepts to people faster, where it's like you just hit one button and you'll do a combo. Even though it's not optimal, it's not good, you can still technically do an okayish amount of damage just by hitting one button.
For sure.
So like, it's like people who actually play the game, like that's like, I say I play Dragon Ball now. Yeah. Like, people who play it can just beat people who mash buttons. Like, mashing buttons is like, there's like 2 steps. It's like, first time you play fighting, it's like mashing buttons, and like figuring out how to mash buttons, how to beat mashing buttons is like the next step in getting better. Where it's if you can beat that, then you're on the way. I have so many time and hour where like all I do is want to get good at it. It's kind of hard to not just like. That's why like playing fighting games with new people isn't as much fun. Like, whenever I'm at a party or something, like, it's not super fun to just like stomp everybody.
Right. Yeah. And trust me, that's not fun for the people you're fighting against either.
Yeah, I was like, this isn't fun for anybody. Let's just play a party game.
Well, Smash. Yeah, that's why. No, because I was gonna say, You very rarely see fighting games show up at parties, like just one-on-one, because only 2 players.
Yeah.
But it always makes me so mad when you pull out Smash at a party and you're doing like 4-player Smash, because any more than 4 and there was no skill involved. And you can definitely argue that even in 4 players there's no skill involved. But like, whenever I've definitely been at parties before where you're doing a 4-player Smash and there was one person there that plays Smash and everyone else is just there to have fun, and that's no fun.
Yeah.
Because then everyone's just getting their asses handed to them, and this one guy is just barely getting touched.
That is me in the when we play Smash. Because like
that's frustrating.
It's funny because I only play it at parties, but I know enough of like understanding like game mechanics and stuff to the point where like, oh, I'll just do this instead, and like I'll just get like the easy win.
For sure.
Again, because that's the only part where it's like fighting games are more fun when you're like you're playing with like one friend, because then you'd be like, oh, I can tell you how to get better, like what to do here, and then it becomes like an actual building. But if you're playing in like a party, people are drinking or something, no one's really caring. It's just like, all right, I'm just gonna win. Yeah. And it's not that much fun.
Right. So we've talked a little bit about like you don't like blocking in fighting games.
That's a good bit. Or just like one of the earlier things of like people like first playing, or like people that are like still in like low ranks in Street Fighter. Oh, credential wise, I'm diamond in Street Fighter 5. That's the highest I can. That's the highest I've gotten so far. So before anybody says this guy's bad, to probably like bronze or something, I am diamond. But I'm people that are like lower ranks or something would be like, this is a fighting game, not a blocking game, and I think that's so funny.
But you like obviously you've mentioned you don't like blocking in games, but what to you makes, like when you pick up a fighting game, what makes this this is a good fighting game, and what makes it like not even like this isn't for me, but like how would you pick up a fighting game and be like, this is a bad fighting game, like this game is not good?
Okay. See, that's a good question, because there's not a lot of times where I'm like, oh, this is just a bad fighting game. Most of the time I'm like, this isn't for me, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's weird. It's kind of weird in the sense of like when a basketball, like if you ever like pick up like a weird feeling basketball, maybe this concept not over you, or it's just like it just feels wrong, and you're not. It's just in like how you use it, right? Where it's like, if I'm playing, what's a good example? Okay, so Guilty Gear Exar might be a good example, because I don't think it's a bad fighting game, but what made me like turn off from it was that like I wanted the character to kind of like flow into their combos a little bit. Yeah. So like I played what's his name? He really hard character. His name's Zato. He's a puppet character, so he controls like a second character on the screen along with himself. Yeah. He's a lot of fun. The only problem is that some of his moves like don't do what I wish they could. So it's like, oh man, I would love this game if this character was just slightly different. And then, but that could change for like a whole game system, right? So like, for example, one thing, like a universal mechanic in a game, like in Dragon Ball, is called super dashing, right? So like bad players will just mash super dash all day, because it just instantly gets you to your opponent without, and you get to hit them too. So it's like, that's an annoying concept I don't like, because it gets annoying. And like, if you're not like just punishing it every single time, they like people could just get away with it, and you're like, great. That's like a concept I don't like about a fighting game. So if like a whole game was just filled with like things I didn't like that, like game mechanic wise, and it's like, I don't know, I'd rather just not play it. It's not my favorite. Like Mortal Kombat has like the block button, which I just don't like having anyway. I'd rather just hold down back or something. And then certain characters, like it's just like mix up central, where it's just like all their characters is just like coin tosses the whole time. Like that's why I don't like Zangief in Street Fighter 5, because it's literally like, all right, guess for 50% of your health bar. All right, guess for the next 50%. All right, you guessed wrong twice, you lose. Yeah. And that's like, because there's not a lot of like double interaction in that. So I'm like, that's part of the game that I don't like. But I love a lot of other things about Street Fighter 5, so I still play it.
Right. Well, and then on top of that, when it comes to stuff like that with like Zangief, of course, I'm a complete, total outsider when it comes to Street Fighter. But like, it seems like in a lot of these games, it's like, yeah, there's this general system of how the game works, but one character can play completely differently from another character.
Yes, that's another reason why we were talking about mains a lot. Oh, I forgot to mention mains for the other games, or at least for Third Strike, because I think I said it for Dragon Ball.
Right, I just kind of assumed that Akuma was also for that.
Oh, sorry. For that one, I play as Urien, and that's because I saw what was it? It was Tokido, he came to Japan in Evo that same year as the Daigo parry, the pairing video from Evo Moment 37, and that one he's able to do something called unblockable, which is like, because the game's old and has this jank mechanic with Urien, he can summon a mirror out where it's like he can hit you as the same time the mirror is, so you can't block it. You would have to parry out of it, which is like almost impossible. Well, not impossible. People can do it, but like you have to be really good to do it. So like you can set it up so it's like you just get to do whatever you want with the unblockable, and you just get a free combo. But it takes meter, so it's kind of more balanced. And like before that time, he got to do like one move over and over again. So it's like tackle, 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 tackle. Then he like ends the combo with a headbutt, and it's like, oh my god, that looks sick. Of course, I want to play as that character. So ever since then, it's like I've been just hitting people with Urien unblockables ever since then, and haven't looked back.
Reminds me of that video you showed me the other day, or that I feel like everybody's seen with the Iron Man.
Oh, the Iron Man Infinite? Yeah, that's a
combo.
Classic. Light punch, medium punch. That's another reason why I'm a huge fan of Marvel's Capcom 2. Like, that game is a ton of fun. It's just the biggest hassle and a half to play it right now because it's not ported on any new console. So, like, there's only, like, 2 real ways to have it. That's to own it on the Dreamcast back when it came out.
Right.
Which now, like, the disc goes for, like, insane prices.
Yeah, it's over $100.
And you also have to get a Dreamcast. So it's like, and a fight stick that can work with a Dreamcast.
My Dreamcast is right behind me.
I know, and I'm like, damn. You're trying to play some Marvel too? But, and then there's like, you can like illegally have it, technically. With a ROM, but it's like, dude, like, I'm just trying to play the game. I don't want to go through the hassle. So like, I set up, like just a training mode, and I'm like, doing the Iron Man Infinite is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's not hard, and you can just like loop it forever. It's so much fun.
How do you feel about Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Infinite?
Okay,
I feel like neither of those games really took off. The same
so
way
Marvel's Capcom 3. So Marvel's Capcom 2 was just like, that's like everyone's favorite fighting game, like when it came out, right? That's why it was so huge. So Marvel Capcom 2, it's got characters you've like never heard of from like either side, where it's got like weird, I think it's like Wukong or something like that from Sega. They had like a whole like cactus character. Isn't it a Mingo? I think it's a Mingo. And like they have like a bunch of characters you've never heard of. And like on Marvel side, I like Marvel a lot. So they've got like Cyclops, Cable, Magneto, Juggernaut, Hulk. Like they've got like Venom.
It's a huge roster.
Yeah, it's huge. And that's why everyone was like, this is the pinnacle. Because not only does it have everyone is really cool in the game. So it's like, oh, of course we love it. Yeah. And then Marvel's Capcom 3 was it's probably one of the biggest fighting game, because back in like 2008-ish, back when like, or maybe 09, because like people call each other 09ers if they started then. I'm like a 2016er at this point, so like I'm even worse on the tier list, but that game was super popular. Like, it was probably like that and Street Fighter 4 were the most popular fighting games for like years, right?
I feel like I just never saw that take off. I mean, but I'm not in the FGC at all. But
that's why it's weird, because I'm talking with someone who's like not.
Right.
Like we're not like, you don't know anything about like fighting games. To the point of like Marvel Capcom 3 and Street Fighter 4 were the 2 biggest fighting games for years.
All right.
And then people had some complaints with Marvel 3. Like, there's a mechanic called X Factor, which is just like your character instantly becomes 10 times stronger. They do like 1,000 more damage, and it's just like, if you get hit like once, like if you get, so there's something called a Happy Birthday, where if you hit like someone else's team also, or like teammate, because it's a team game, you get to wipe like their whole team out in like 4 hits. It's wild. And then that, like, a lot of people really didn't like that, because there's nothing like that in older team games. And then Marvel's Capcom Infinite. This is before I didn't know this in retrospect, but I got it because I'm like, oh, I should learn a team game.
Everybody hated that game, right?
So it's like so everyone really didn't like it. So like it looked bad, first of all. It's like when the game came out, like Chun-Li's face was garbage. Everyone hated how it looked. Which was weird too, because everyone loved how it played. Like, everyone's like, oh, this is a really fun game, because you get like sick mix-ups. All the characters get really cool moves and combos. There's another part is that people didn't like, is that didn't have like any of the characters from Marvel 3, but like the people they had from Marvel 3 were just reused. So it wasn't like new combos or like anything else like that. It was just like, characters got reused. There were like no more X-Men.
I was gonna say it was missing the X-Men because of the weird
yeah,
licensing stuff.
Yeah,
right?
so like they couldn't get any of the X-Men. Like my favorite character in Marvel Comics history is Magneto.
Oh, yeah?
So like when I got into it, I'm like, oh, Magneto's probably gonna be in this game. I am ready. This game's good. It's new. Like I wasn't in there for Marvel 3, but I'll be here for Infinite. Nope. I was so sad. And then in Marvel's Capcom 2, like Magneto is like there's like 3 characters like people care about for Marvel 3, and that's like Magneto, Doctor Doom, and a couple others. But like, man, Magneto, I was so disappointed Magneto wasn't in there. He's such a cool character, and then when I figured out you can play him in a fighting game, I was like, this is even 10 times better. Like I'm about to be so happy. And he's a ton of fun in Marvel 3 and Marvel 2. But he's hard though. He's a hard character to play as, but he's very rewarding once you get like hyper grab loops down. Weird tangent, but ton of fun, but Infinite didn't have that. There's like a bunch of other things wrong. The collector's edition I remember was just like it was supposed to like be like the Infinity Stones if you'd have them, but like they're just like light up Easter eggs. Like they're so shitty.
I remember seeing that.
And everyone's like, "Are you kidding me right now?" And it's like it did have like a tournament scene for a while because everyone's like, "Oh, it's Marvel. It's going to be good." But then like it got canceled at EVO, or not canceled EVO, like they just didn't put it on for an EVO one year. And then everyone's like, "Oh, this game's dead now." I know there's like still some people who play it pretty like or pretty passionately. Like they're still really into it, but like a lot of people didn't like it.
Yeah. If you could make your perfect fighting game,
Ooh.
like take all aspects of all fighting games that you enjoy and make like this is it. This is like built for Austin fighting game.
Okay.
What kind of game would you make?
That's rough. Okay, that's hard because there's like certain concepts that I love in fighting games, but like I maybe shouldn't be in like because I like team games and one-on-one games. So that's why I never got into King of Fighters, but that's what King of Fighters is, where it's like the characters come in one-on-one, and then as soon as one's out, the next one comes in. So I'm like, that could be right up my alley, but I've never really tried it. So that could be it. But if I could have a team where I could play as Android 21, Akuma, and Urien on the same team, it would have to be the worst game mechanically if to make me not play it. You know what I'm saying?
So you just want like Fighters X Capcom.
Oh, yes. Where it's like if I can play as like fun, it's like I want characters that have like disgusting mix-ups. Like I want characters to be broken. It's like that's the fun part. It's like Urien is broken only because he can hit people with unblockables, but other characters are broken because they have like insanely good frame data. Like they had like Chun-Li in Street Fighter in Third Strike is like top tier in that game. So like she can just like dominate like the whole screen. Her pokes are super long. She can charge meters so fast just by whiffing a heavy punch. It's just like there's so much busted stuff in games where it's like if I can play as like super busted Akuma, 21 that can steal moves, and then like Urien, who is just like I would just put him like from Third Strike in any game. It'd be so much fun. It'd be so much fun. That'd probably be my favorite game.
Well, hey, maybe we'll get that one day. Never, fingers crossed.
Oh, Dragon Ball X Capcom.
Hey, I'm sure some developers are listening to this right now, and they're taking notes.
100%.
So we'll wrap up soon, but I this question popped in my head a few minutes ago. If you don't realize, we're living in a pandemic.
Yes.
So what is the tournament scene like now? Like because if from my experience, playing games like these fighting games online is not preferred as opposed to being there in person.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So what's the tournament scene like right now? Because tournaments, I mean, they can't really happen right now.
No. Yeah. So tournaments are very interesting because right now it's just purely online. So like for some games it's manageable, but for a lot of like the newer, especially like newer fighting games, right, where it's like online is really not the way to go, or at least because how they've implemented. Because almost all the time when a new fighting game comes out, it's like either adopted into like the main part of the FGC or it's just like tossed aside immediately.
Yeah.
Because and like the biggest thing is like developer stuff, they never really care about like making online good before, because the excuse was like, oh, they're just going to play it offline anyway because that's the preferred way to play it.
Yeah.
Which is like kind of understandable, but also for like online warriors who like grew up just playing like online anyway. Like Street Fighter V's online is okay, and that's only if you have like a good connection, and then you can like make it work. Dragon Ball is notoriously bad because it's like it has so important thing also. There's 2 different types of netcode for fighting games. There's delay-based netcode, and then there's rollback netcode. Rollback is 10 times better for fighting games, but there can be like some instances, like very tiny ones. But most games anyway, like especially like Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball, run on delay-based netcode, where it's like it just slows everyone down to the worst person's connection.
Ooh.
Which is really rough, especially when you need like quick timing and reacting
Which
to
is
things.
like what all fighting games are based around.
Yeah, exactly. So like you add like 4, like what was it? Something bad where it's like 8 frames of delay, or like 9, or like anything higher than 2 is really noticeable. Where it's like you hit a button, then it comes out. It's not like 1-to-1, which is like super frustrating. So like it's really been surviving off of what games you're playing. Like I know there's a couple games that actually got a resurgence because they actually have good online, which is like Killer Instinct has had like good online since the Xbox One, right?
Killer Instinct, dude. I totally forgot that game existed.
Yeah, and like it made a good comeback for a while just because it had good online, so everyone's like, oh, I'll just play a game that works online. And then it's like
You're talking about like the reboot from like 2014. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like
is that game still active?
Yeah, there's people that play it. There's a lot of people that play it. It's just like it's not as popular as like the main like 4 games, which is like Tekken, Dragon Ball, Street Fighter, and then I already said Dragon Ball, but maybe like Guilty Gear.
What's the latest Tekken game? I feel like I never hear
7?
anything about that. Oh, 7.
Yeah, Tekken 7. So Tekken 7 is crazy popular here in Knoxville. We actually have a ton of people from Knoxville who go to tournaments and do amazing. So like we have Trungi. He's a professional, professional. I've been to his house, which is weird, just like playing Tekken. But it's like we're just like chilling playing Tekken, and like he's one of the best in the world at Tekken. And so like he's played against like people like Lil Majin and like other like pro players, I guess, and they're like insanely good, which sucks because like there's a huge Tekken community here in Knoxville. So like if you're into Tekken, come here. Everyone will definitely want to play with you. But like people who play like Street Fighter 5 and like Dragon Ball, there's like 6 of us who play Dragon Ball, and there's like 5 of us who play Street Fighter. So it's like it's pretty small. But like we've got like at least 20 people who play Tekken 7 at minimum, like every tournament. So it's like there's a lot of people who love, like if you're in Tekken, this is the place to be. Kind of makes me wish I was into Tekken. I tried getting into it. It's just not my thing. I don't think I like 3D fighting games as much because it's like every character in Tekken has like no exaggeration 50 moves, and it's just like I get a little like
do you mean
so
like
much
3D as in you can do like the side steps?
Yes, so it's like it's 1-on-1, but there's like side steps available. So it's like Soul Calibur and Tekken are like the 2 big ones.
To me, as like a Dragon Ball fan, it makes me think the Budokai games.
Oh yeah, sort of. I think.
Well, Budokai you can do the side steps.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
I've never played Budokai, so maybe not.
We should pull them out because I have all of them. So the first 3 Budokais are kind of like Tekken, I would assume, because they're like side to side, very traditional fighting game. But you do the sidestep thing. But then Tenkaichi through Tenkaichi 3 and most of the new ones, not counting fighters, are 3D arena fighters.
Gotcha.
So those are less real. But Budokai 3 has there's still, or at least when I was growing up, there was a scene for that.
I know, it's weird. I know a lot of people who love that game.
But, I mean, it's good.
Yeah. Because I know, like, people just love that game, but, like, I've never played it or, like, heard of it. Because I know I was never into Dragon Ball when I was little until now I'm really into Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
So, like, now I kind of want to look at it.
Oh, dude, for sure. Like, one of these times when we're hanging out, like, I mean, I've got them all right there on my shelf, and my PS2 is plugged in.
Yeah.
So
I'm down to try it.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So, I guess wrapping up, because, we've been talking for a little while now. You mentioned you've played in some tournaments. What's been your like tournament highlight? Like what out of your like FGC career? Like what's the like highlight of your career? Like what's your favorite moment you've ever had?
Okay, so there are a couple times where I just had like fun times. So me and my friends all went to my CEO, which is in where was it last time? It was in it was in Florida. I forget where exactly we were, but it was a ton of fun. So like CEO is just like it's like one of the majors for fighting games, right? Mm-hmm. Or like I guess you could say like nationals or something. So it's you go there, it's like you're in a huge tournament with like all the best players in the world. Like people from Japan fly down for it all the time. Damn. So it's like I got to see like Tokido and like all these like amazing fighting game players, and then you get to play with them and like play regular games with them, just like hey, are you free? Because I got the next set and stuff like that. So it was a ton of fun. I got to play Chris G in tournament for Dragon Ball. And that was a lot of fun. I got smoked though because I like just started, but I went 3-2 there, and then I went 2-2 in Street Fighter V because I played against the guy who won KIT, which is the local, or I guess local, but it was where I was in high school, which was like Franklin, Tennessee, like the Marriott. Oh, so much fun. And then my highlight in terms of like best performance wise is that I went to, during that time in CEO, we had a side tournament for Third Strike. And then I was playing, this is before I was like really good, but I was still able to get like a bunch of wins. Like Storm Kubo was playing in there. There's a bunch of like people who are like, like really good at Third Strike. Yeah. Like I'm talking like best in the world. And I managed to get top 8 in that tournament just by like cheesing people with Urian. But man, it was so much fun. It was definitely like, because we're playing on like old arcade hardware, and it was like you just plug in, you play, and it's like, oh, so much fun. And then the one that speaks up to me most is the biggest win is that I was playing in Street Fighter V, and I was able to beat like that guy Clint, and then I was able to play against like Tito G Thomas, my other friend, and I remember like whenever I get a win off of them, it's like I can actually see myself improving to the point of like, this is like, I'm getting close to like making it.
That's awesome.
And then like, I'm able to like keep going even further. So like those moments where you're playing against people that you've been playing with like for the longest time, and you're just like able to beat them like even like once, it's like, yes, like it's like no feeling is better to me.
Hell
like
yeah,
in the
dude.
world.
I was literally talking to my girlfriend about this earlier today. That sounds like the feeling that I was describing. I was saying, oh, I kind of wish I could study Japanese as my major.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, I know I want to do journalism, but it would also be cool if I could just do Japanese or just the language, because that feeling where you tangibly feel yourself get better at the language, like you can just tell, oh, I'm studying, I can read this now. It's that feeling that you get after your first semester or after studying hiragana and katakana for a while, and you look at a piece of Japanese writing and it clicks. Yeah. And it goes from, I remember even just, before college, looking at Japanese, and it's literally like, just
it just like you can't. It's like completely incomprehensible.
It's like a fake language from a video game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where it's literally just gibberish.
Yeah,
and then having that feeling where you look at that and you're like, I might not be able to understand everything in this sentence, but for the most part, I can read this.
That's like a
boost. Like whoa.
That's why I love studying Japanese too, because like you get that feeling if you see it and you're like, this makes sense, and it's like you get this gratification of like, not only did I learn something, I was able to like see the actual like it was like so tangible, as opposed to just like, oh, you could like learn this random fact, and it's like, okay, but like once you like learn how to do something, that's so much more gratifying than like, oh, it's so good, I love it.
And that sounds like what you're saying with fighting games.
It really is. It's really just like a constant, like you're constantly just learning something new, which is really fun.
So Austin, hit me with it. Why are fighting games fun?
Okay, so fighting games to me is that they're a constant story. So like normally when I play like a single player game, if it has like a good story, I'm like, okay, I'm really invested, and I'm always sad when it's over because I'm like,
like a good anime.
Yeah, it's like if I watch something and I'm like, so what is it? It's like me and my brother are watching Dragon Ball for the first time right now, and like we just finished this Frieza saga, and we're like, oh, actually no, now we're on. All right. Anyway, we watched the Frieza saga, and I'm like, oh man, that was good. I want there to be more, and then now that there is like more, then I'm like, oh, okay, sick, it can keep going, and then like it'll constantly keep getting like more and more content, right? Where it's like when I'm playing like a story mode game, like I remember BioShock Infinite is one of my favorite games. I was younger in middle school, so that might be why, but it was like a ton of fun. It was one of the few only like pure story games I've ever played. It's not super long, but it's a lot of fun. But like I played it, and I was so bummed when it was over because like I couldn't play it anymore. Because to me, there's no point of playing it if the story's already over.
Right.
So that's why I think fighting games are the most fun, because it's the story of yourself playing and who you're interacting with is always going. Like, for example, like what I'm talking about is like me and my brother have always been like practice partners with each other. So like whenever it's like it's like growing up with like Krillin and then like seeing Krillin like do something cool, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was awesome. And like whenever he wins, it feels just as good as like when I win, right? Where it's like, that was so sick. I'm so happy for. It's like he did so well. Krillin Rock. It's like it's so much fun. And then when you do something better, it's like, oh, this guy's insane. It's like me as a person, right? It's like my story going through like playing fighting games. I'll play someone who's like the Cell of like our area, right? And I'm like, I gotta fucking beat Cell, right?
Yeah.
And then if you do, it's like, yes, can you imagine? Like we came out, we fucking beat Cell, we won, and like, but if you lose, like, god damn it. But what if we had like a training arc and we got stronger, then we beat Cell? It's like that's the whole like the story mode is like always going forward whenever you're playing, but it's like the story of like you and your friends all playing.
For sure. That's I've never heard it put like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so like that's a huge reason of why I love fighting games, because you'll meet new people on their own journey. Like I have a really good friend named Taj who I just purely met. I met him in 2 tournaments. It was like what was it? It's like Georgia. They have like this huge LAN like tournament. I forget what it's called, but it's like I met him in Georgia and then we talked. We had a good game. He's like the nicest dude you could ever meet. I love Taj. But so I met him there, and then I met him at Kumite. And I'm like, oh, hey, Taj, how are you doing? So he's like, oh, good. We like talked a bunch, then we went and got food together. And he's like, hey, since you're from here, do you know any good play? And it's like, I got to meet so many cool people that are on their own, like, I would have never met before, just like on their own journey playing fighting games.
Yeah.
If I didn't go. So like that's why they're so much fun. And then like Taj is also really good at Street Fighter. So like he got farther in the bracket than like a lot of us did, and we're all like, let's go, Taj. That's our boy. Let's go.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, dude, I'd love to hear it. That's awesome.
Yeah, so like that was a big reason of like why I love fighting games, because the idea of like a story mode that can never end. It only ends when you put the controller down, is like the greatest thing that I could ever ask for. Because fighting games are so personal, right?
Yeah.
No person looks at like the character they play and like, oh, it's just a character. Like everyone's like, I fuck with Akuma, and if you don't fuck with him, I hate you, right? Where it's like, I love Akuma, and I love Yuri, and I love Android 21. So like, if someone ever said like Android 21 had like a bad design, I'd be like, you're actually capping right now. Like that is wild.
Cringe.
I know exactly. And I'm like, I could not imagine. And that's why they're so fun, because I watched like YouTube videos of like IFC Yipes playing like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 with like Josh 360, who's like the greatest Iron Man player in the world. Mm-hmm. And it's like watching him play with Iron Man is like, oh, that's just Josh. That's not Iron Man. That's like just the dude playing. And it's like, that's such a cool concept to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, when I think about Tokido, who's like my favorite player in general, he also plays Akuma. And he's been playing Akuma since like Street Fighter 4 or like even earlier. And I'm like, this character is so cool. I want to be, and like the guy is so cool too. So like when he won Evo, it felt like, even though I no way, shape, or capable of like winning Evo, seeing him win Evo was like, Akuma did it, right? And I'm like, like, and also like he's just an insanely hard worker, and I always grind for like anything that comes too easy. I'm like, okay, I'll just do it later. But like I see him work hard, I'm like, oh, that's like kind of me, right?
Hell yeah, dude.
So like seeing them win is like so gratifying.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. The reason why I think I got into like fighting games and like other things, because I'm also love fencing.
Right, yeah.
So like fencing,
which in my head, fencing is also like a 2D fighting game.
It really is 2D fighting games, the sport, which is really funny because I've been fencing for about 5 years now, I think 6 now for 2021. So I've been fencing for 6 years, and there's like different ratings in fencing, so it goes from A to A, B, C, D, E, and then unrated. So like so technically you're unrated because you've never fenced in a tournament before or earned a rating. So like I am a B-rated fencer. So like, not to toot my own horn, but I'm the highest rated fencer in Tennessee.
Ooh,
so I
toot that horn, baby.
So like I've been fencing for so long. Where
See, it is a 2D fighting game.
It really is, because it's like it's just pure like mind games, and it's like there's so many similarities between fencing and fighting games where I'm like, I feel like I was really born to do these two things.
Yeah.
Because like every time I'm doing something, it's like, oh, I can get better because I know what he's gonna do and I can react to it, or I've got this 6 like plan or like setup for fighting game players. It's like I've got the 6 setup for fencing, so I know he's gonna miss. I can win, right?
Heck yeah.
So like competing in both fighting game tournaments and fencing tournaments have been like so unified to the point where like it's been the most fun. Also, for anyone who actually does fencing, if you do saber or if you do foil or epee, bro, what are you doing? Just fence saber. Like you're kind of cringe. But anyway, saber is so fast and so like fun to the point where it's like all the other ones you see, because like foil is the one where you when you probably think of fencing, it's like just like the stick, right?
Or
like
we were
the
talking
pointy
about
one.
this the other day.
Yeah, it's like saber is so fast and it's very like it's like immediate. You have to like move really fast and stuff like that. So like when comparing that to fighting games, it's like total reactions. Like you have to take risks too in both, which took me the longest time to understand.
Yeah.
Because I was always like, why wouldn't I just do the safest thing and just like cruise on that? It's like to get good, you have to take risks, and like that's like the whole concept of like fighting games in general. Is like you do a move, you're taking a risk, but if it pays off, you can like lead that into other things and so forth and so on.
Here we go, guys. This is life advice from. I'm getting close and personal. Get some ASMR, guys. This is a life advice from Jake and Austin. If you want to succeed in anything, you got to take risks, baby. You can't listen here. I'm gonna start calling my listeners babies. Hey, babies, come listen to me. So you got to take risks in life. You want to succeed. Go to college. Take out that loan. You want to get in a good relationship. Ask that guy out. So what? What's the worst he can say? What's the worst you can do in fencing? Lose? Okay, do it again. Get better. All right, I'm backing up now.
Man, speaking the Lord's truth right there. But it's like, yeah, it really is like it feels like the more time you put into these two things, right? I always felt like always got rewarded with it. Because I could always see that tangible proof of like, oh, I am getting better. Mm-hmm. And like when it pays off, there's no greater feeling in the world when like I hit diamond the other day and I'm like just like I'm in my room. It's like super late at night. I've got like fucking bags under my eyes. I'm playing and I hit diamond. I just like threw my fight stick in the air. I'm like cheering.
Yeah.
Like, oh, let's go. Finally. Like I've so much time and effort has been put into it. And that's only diamond. It's not even like the highest rank. So it's like
right.
There's always like a step for improvement. And that's why I'm always like, I am so ready to keep going.
For sure, man.
At no point am I like, yeah, I'm bored.
I love that. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could. Maybe one day I will. Who knows? Maybe I'll get old and I'll choose one game and just stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I would very much love to see you get into one fighting game.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe one day. All right, Austin. We've been going for like mega long.
Yeah,
as far as behind the cutscenes goes.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel like I could have you back on and we could talk about again. I could keep going because here that's a whole other tangent that we could have just gone on for an hour. All that to be said, had a great conversation.
It was good.
Thanks so much for being here. Do you want to plug yourself, like any social media or anything if people want to find you?
Sure. Go by Dio Fighting Games in terms of my tag in tournament, but I'm at ahook4 on Twitter. I don't really post much on there. It says like highest rated fans of Tennessee or something like that. But yeah, there are some things I do want to plug out though. Yeah. Not for me though.
It's sure.
I said it before, but Core Gaming videos. If you have any interest in fighting games, or if you're just curious more about it, highly recommend look up the videos. Look up that channel, Core Gaming on YouTube. It's so good.
Heck yeah, dude.
It's like the savior of all fighting games. I love it.
All right. Well, thanks for being here.
No problem. It was a lot of fun.